about a month and a half ago, I was sent the Teclast X98 Plus II. So I opened this thing up, and I was a little iffy initially. It's both Android and Windows 10. It's very inexpensive compared to what else is on the market. So if you're comparing this to an iPad, you are spending way less, and you're getting a lot more in the sense of specs, those bonuses, those extras. So I said, you know what? Let me use this long term. It's very difficult to do a full-fledged review when you get something like this in a matter of a week. So I like to take my time, and I actually like to use the product. So I'll give you the specs on this, and you tell me what you think, Paul. So it does Windows. It's a 9.7-inch display. It's the same display as the iPad Air and the iPad Air 2. Same exact display. So what is it? 2048 by 1536.
36. Yeah.
It's a Retina display. It has Intel Cherry Trail Z83, I think, what is it? Z8300? Yeah. Z8300. It's a 64-bit quad-core processor, 1.4 gigahertz. It has 4 gigs of RAM. So the specs sound great. And I would say that is not enough for you to determine if this is what you want. But what is really cool is that you have Windows 10 and Android on it. Also, you have expandable memory, and you have micro HDMI and micro USB and all the stuff. So, started using it. It's pretty cool. And then I realized it's actually really good because the battery, I was shocked to see the battery life. I initially, when I wrote this review, I said, the battery life's probably not going to be that great. Very good battery life for what it is. I think it's an 8,000 milliamp battery. It's not that big, but it performs really good in Windows compared to Android, which is kind of surprising, right?
Yeah, actually.
You would imagine that Android would handle battery life better, but Windows does a better job at this. Let me see if I can pull this down. There we go. So I'm in Android right now, and it has, it's typical Android stuff. You could, install your apps and everything. So this is how you switch. It's kind of funky how it's done, but this is how you switch to Windows. So you see, I don't know if you can see it, but it has like these Chinese characters. Yeah. And it says Windows. So and then you.
So there's no way to make that another language?
No. So it's their own software that is like kind of like the switcher, the reset, and you go through it. The boot up takes a little bit of time, but you have a full-fledged Windows 10 machine here. I hooked it up to my Bluetooth because I have an adapter to go from the micro USB to the main USB, and I hooked it up to my keyboard and mouse, and I was just clicking around like using Windows, and it was perfectly fine. The price of this device is the major selling point. You're under $200. I think it's $170.
That's amazing.
So for $170, here we go. So I wiped this out afterwards. Here we go. Here, we're in Windows now. It's the touch display is perfectly fine. It works great. Here's the interesting thing that I noticed, okay? So I don't use the Edge browser. I use, like a normal person, I use Chrome.
Yeah.
And with Chrome, I had difficulty watching, higher quality video.
Yeah.
In Edge, I was able to watch 4K video on this thing.
Wow.
So the CPU's fine. It's great. I'm very surprised by it. I was not anticipating this positive of a review for a tablet under $200 that has both Android and Windows 10 on it. So,
but how did you get this thing?
It was sent to me. They wanted me to review it. And I said,
so how would somebody get it? How would somebody? So
if you search, there's a website here. I think it's called, let me do this, Teclast, so I could give you guys the proper website. So it's sold, I believe they have some on Amazon, but there's a website called gearbest.com. And it's a lot of these, unknown name companies. Like they have some name brand stuff, but it's a lot of these Chinese tablets, and it's a lot of these laptops that you may not be aware of. they have some funky stuff on there also, but that's the main place that this is sold, and it goes for about $170, which is not bad at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah, $170. You're getting a full-fledged machine here. I can't think of another product, another tablet that you could get, more bang for your buck. Now there are a couple cons with anything, but the cons are the battery life in Android wasn't as good as it was in Windows, and the Android. Because I ran it through some benchmarking, it uses more CPU for whatever reason. I don't know if that's an Intel issue. I'm guessing it's an Intel problem, right? Because Android really doesn't work too much with Intel, so...
yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it's not very common, but it should be fully supported. I mean... Yeah,
so a couple other things, like there's a firmware update on the Android side, and... There's a firmware update on the Android side, and it doesn't seem to work. Doesn't seem to install. The OTA update fails on that side, and the Wi-Fi. I had some issues with the Wi-Fi, but on the Windows side, it was better, surprisingly. So it seemed, and that's what you're buying. I mean, if you want a full-fledged computer, you got a full-fledged computer. It's also available on Amazon, so if you guys want it, it's there. I was very surprised at the quality. Now, you are getting, if you're paying under $200, $170, and that's all you want to spend, I think it's great. If you compare it to an iPad, I'm not really going to compare it to an iPad or a Surface. Somebody asked me last week, how does this compare to a Surface? I said, you can't really compare it to a Surface because a Surface is what, like $500-$600 if you compare it.
More.
More. I mean, more. Yeah. The other thing I liked was the expandable memory, up to 128 gigs. You could put in an SD, micro SD in here. So I have to tell you, if you are in the market for a lower end tablet, you might want to consider this. That's my review of this device. People were, I was very concerned at the how good this thing was going to be, and very surprised. The cameras are not so great on it, but that's with, it's a $170 tablet. It's not going to be the best camera in the world. So, Paul, would you, here's the thing. I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Who do you think a device like this would be good for?
It's like any dual booting situation. It's, for people who kind of on the fence, I don't think there's a big compelling case for pure tablets running Windows 10, but it's basically an Android tablet, and you do have that ability to go into Windows 10 and get that stuff if you want it. Yeah. So there's certainly benefit to it. It's just a question of, how much utility. I mean, it makes more sense than a pure Windows tablet.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who. Listen, if you have a budget and you want a tablet, you have Android and Windows, right? Because you could install the old stuff on there and all the new stuff on there from Android and from Windows if whatever's on with the applications. But I don't know if there is a need to have a dual boot concept. I don't know how well that works. Listen, it's a perk, right? That you could do Windows and that on there, but I found it interesting. If you want to install Anniversary Update, it's a little out there. You can't just do it. You got to put in a USB and do it via USB stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm holding off on it. There are forums. There is a couple websites out there that kind of review these type of tablets that are on the market, and they create their own ROMs and they tell you how to install stuff you want. So if that's what you want to do, there's plenty of resources out there, and there's a lot of people that are using it. So I thought it was cool. I thought it was an interesting device.
No, it's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the coolest things about it is a lot of people who are on kind of the Windows or I guess the Android side of the fence as well, as much as they may or may not like Apple or whatever. I mean, it's like you got to like that kind of industrial style that they have, and this is a nice opportunity to have that, but with the OS you prefer.